Hello, I'm glad that you're here. I've been a police officer for nearly 25 years, and I've trained police officers in all 50 states. I've got a few things that I'd like to talk with you about. Many times people will ask me, how did this relationship get started? And how did it get to be like this? And why doesn't she leave this relationship? I had those questions too, and I developed a tool called the scale of relationships to help me understand it in a way that made sense. The scale of relationship is based on the theory that every action has an equal reaction. And when these people got together, the actions on the male's part was kindness, compassion, caring, treating the other person with respect and with dignity. And her equal reaction was also kindness and compassion. And their relationship was built on this action and this equal reaction, much like all of our relationships have been built. But as the relationship goes on in a battering relationship, he'll do something to her that's harmful. And I don't mean harmful something that's physical, but say something harmful to her, about her family. Generally, the first thing that he will attack is her sexuality, that she's a bitch or she's fat, or that nobody would want to be with her if she's not with him. And she'll do something as an equal reaction back and say something about him or his family or about his manhood in an effort to be equal with him in his actions that he had taken toward her. But this relationship continues to be built upon this dignity and respect and kindness and caring, and in some cases that exists many times. But as the relationship goes on and he then says something that's hurtful, she has that equal reaction, then there's an imaginary line of physical force. And the first time he crosses that line might be that he grabs her by the arm and says, "Don't you ever walk away from me when I'm talking to you." Her equal reaction is to push him away and say, "You don't ever touch me like that. You don't ever do anything to me that's physical. Keep your hands off of me." But she's still an equal partner, and the action has an equal reaction. As the relationship continues, there are still times that are those two first blue lines at the bottom of the scale that are kindness and compassion. But as the relationship continues, he continues to cross that imaginary line of physical force and begins to use more and more force to her to make sure that he's in control. And he'll do an action where she has an equal reaction, like maybe it's a push, and she'll push him back. Maybe it's a slap, and he'll slap her back. Maybe it's a punch, and she'll punch him back. But then at the very top of the scale, there's an incident, and I'll give you an example of one of those incidents, where a man and a woman lived together, and the woman was pregnant. And the man came home, and he had been drinking and was intoxicated. And the woman said to him, "You know what, you've got to stop behaving like this. We've got a baby on the way. You need to be a grown-up. You need to be a father." And his reaction is, "Well, it's not that big of a deal. I just had a few beers with the boys. Nothing to worry about here." And she said, "It is a big deal." And they began then to escalate up this scale of where then she said, "I want you out. Leave this house. I don't want you here when you've been drinking. In fact, I want you out of here right now." She pushed him to push him toward the door to get him to leave, and he pushed her back. And she slapped him, and he slapped her back. And then she came at him to push him again once outside the door, and he knocked her down to the ground and punched her several times in the temple, and then grabbed her by the hair and drug her across the floor and threw her down the steps of their home, and ran down the steps then after her and started to kick her in the abdomen where this unborn child resided. And this woman spent 8 days in the hospital, and she told nobody about what had really happened. And the reasons that she told nobody about what happened is because immediately he started to say, "Oh, baby, I love you so much. I want to be in your life. I want to be with you. I want to be the father of your child. Please know that it was the drinking, and I'll never, ever drink again." And she started to think about when the relationship first started with the dignity and respect, and thought that maybe that could exist without the drinking. But we know that that's not true, that it didn't have anything to do with the drinking, but it was his effort to try to control her. And once he exerted that power that she couldn't have an equal reaction to his action, then all he needed to do was remind her of that one time that he overpowered her. Remind her of that one time that he put her in the hospital for 8 days. And he didn't need to beat her up to get her to submit to what his requests were, or submit what he wanted her to do, or where she went, or what she did, or who she was with. All he had to do was remind her of that one time that he was in power and that he was in control. And in many relationships, there will be more violent actions on his part to just reassert the fact that he's in control, that he's in power. But the power remains where all he has to do is give her the look, and in any little subtle ways that he has come up with to remind her of that one time that he overpowered her. And that's power and control.